Insecurity represents one of the most profound and universal experiences of the human condition, touching nearly every individual at some point in their lives. It often manifests in relation to physical traits, such as height, the shape of the nose or eyes, or behavioral characteristics, like the manner of expression or social interaction. Recent research indicates that over 50% of adults in various countries report having faced stigma related to body weight, which extends to insecurities about appearance and self-perception. Moreover, 1 in 8 adults has experienced suicidal thoughts linked to concerns about body image, a phenomenon exacerbated by the constant flow of idealized images on social media. Recognizing this universality is not mere consolation. It is an acknowledgement that insecurity is not an isolated flaw, but a shared response to the complexity of human existence, where the self is constantly negotiated in a world of implicit judgments. The origins of these insecurities, far from being purely internal or innate, are constructed through layers of external influences that shape our perception of the self over time. In childhood, taunts from peers or comments from family members, even those made with good intentions, such as suggestions about appearance to improve one's image, plant enduring seeds of doubt. Contemporary studies reveal that body image issues emerge as early as 7 years of age, with children internalizing negative perceptions from initial social interactions. These cultural and social patterns amplify the process, imposing ideals of beauty and normality that vary across societies but invariably exclude much of human diversity. In the West, for example, the emphasis on slim and symmetrical bodies marginalizes those who do not conform, creating an invisible hierarchy of value. The influence of media intensifies this construction. Films, advertising, and social networks perpetuate idealized images, often edited, that promote narrow standards and marginalize those who do not fit. Recent analyses highlight that visual platforms expose users to hundreds of daily images of perfect bodies, fostering dissatisfaction and constant comparisons from adolescence onward. Thus, insecurity does not arise from an inner void, but from a social fabric that subtly teaches us to view ourselves as insufficient. The impacts of this insecurity transcend mere self-image, infiltrating all domains of existence and shaping everyday choices in profound and often unconscious ways. In the behavioral realm, individuals may opt for clothing that conceals body parts deemed inadequate, avoiding vibrant colors or revealing silhouettes out of fear of scrutiny, which limits authentic expression. In relationships, self-doubt erodes confidence, generating difficulties in romantic connections, such as the fear of vulnerability that hinders intimacy, and in friendships, with a dread of rejection leads to isolation or superficial interactions. Research indicates that a significant portion of adults reports negative impacts on their sexual and relational lives directly attributed to body dissatisfaction. In the professional sphere, the fear of judgment can paralyze ambitions, avoiding presentations, promotions, or networking due to insecurity about appearance, perpetuating a cycle of self-imposed underperformance. This dynamic worsens when insecurities lead to compensatory behaviors, such as the need to demonstrate superiority through material means. For instance, flaunting possessions or wealth to assert, "I have more money than you." A futile attempt to mask inner fragility with fleeting external validations. At its core, however, lies the damage to mental health. Insecurity fuels chronic anxiety, persistent shame, relentless self-criticism, and, in extreme cases, depression. Current studies link body dissatisfaction to eating disorders, reduced quality of life, and self-destructive cycles, where isolation reinforces suffering, turning the self into a continuous battlefield. Faced with this depth, viable paths emerge for confrontation and acceptance, strategies rooted in contemporary psychology that emphasize individual agency without promising illusions of instant cure. Self-awareness and mindfulness form the foundation. Identifying triggers, such as a media image that sparks comparisons, and ruminative thought patterns allows interruption of the cycle, anchoring the mind in the present to cultivate compassionate observation. Mindfulness practices, by bringing attention to the current moment, foster an inner peace that relativizes internal narratives. Paralleling this, self-compassion emerges as an essential tool, treating oneself with the gentleness reserved for a close friend, recognizing that suffering is human and deserving of empathy rather than judgment. Simple exercises like compassion journals help internalize this stance. Narrative reframing offers another angle, transforming views of flaws into neutral or value-laden perspectives, discovering, for example, how a unique physical trait confers authenticity or resilience, converting a source of pain into an element of identity. Seeking support is indispensable. Dialogues with friends or family build networks of validation, while therapy, individual or group, dismantles entrenched patterns, with evidence showing that compassion-based approaches significantly improve self-image. Support communities, whether in-person or virtual, reinforce a sense of belonging. Moreover, directing focus toward internal qualities, ethical values, creative talents, empathy, and emotional intelligence builds enduring confidence, untethered from ephemeral appearance. Creative and playful practices, such as artistic expression, photography, or the act of cooking, reconnect the individual to the body as a vehicle of pleasure and creation, celebrating its sensory capacities. Finally, gratitude and perspective broaden the horizon. By appreciating the body's functionalities, the ability to move, feel, breathe, and the everyday wonders of life, insecurities relativize, gaining a less absolute contour. However, it is crucial to distinguish acceptance from perfection. The goal does not lie in unconditionally loving every aspect of the self or eradicating all insecurities, aspirations that border on the unreal and can generate further frustration. Instead, one seeks an accessible acceptance, which consists of dismantling the belief that personal value depends on conformity to externally imposed standards. This journey is inherently continuous and nonlinear, marked by advances and setbacks, where progress is measured not by the absence of doubt, but by the reduction of its dominion over actions and choices. Ceasing to internalize others' verdicts frees space for a more authentic existence, recognizing that imperfection is the fertile soil of humanity. In this context, the role of vulnerability and empathy reveals itself as transformative, acting as bridges between isolation and connection. Vulnerability, the courageous act of exposing insecurities, does not weaken but strengthens by humanizing the self and inviting reciprocity. It is argued that it operates as an empathetic mirror. By sharing fragilities, we encourage others to reveal their own, fostering a network of mutual understanding that dissolves the illusion of isolation. This dynamic contrasts with the armor of self-sufficiency, which perpetuates solitary suffering. Instead, vulnerability cultivates collective empathy, where insecurities are viewed not as defects, but as shared marks of the human experience, promoting a more compassionate and resilient society. Finally, beyond individual effort, an urgent cultural shift is needed to reconfigure the social foundations of insecurity. It is suggested to support movements that challenge narrow standards, such as those promoting diverse representations in media and fashion, combating size discrimination, and prioritizing mental health over idealized aesthetics. Despite recent setbacks, like the return to slim ideals in fashion events, there are advances in inclusivity, visible in lingerie and fitness campaigns that celebrate real bodies and holistic well-being. To contribute, consume varied content, support inclusive brands, and educate about the mechanisms of social pressure, transforming media consumption into an act of resistance. Thus, insecurity, far from being an inevitable fate, can yield space to a culture where acceptance emerges as the norm and human value transcends the surface. Thank you for watching. Stay well, and see you in the next video.